De verdad, es que es una locura abrir Ankirak de los primeros del mundo. Y nos acaban de decir que tenemos que farmear el doble de ciertos materiales. Tenemos que farmear, creo que 200.000 runecloth más, no sé qué.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our Shadowlands live stream. I'm John Haidt, executive producer for World of
Productor
Warcraft.
ejecutivo.
We have a lot to tell you about today, but first, I want to start by saying thank you to our amazing community. Like many of you, our regular routines have been turned upside down since we quarantined in March. We miss seeing our friends, the daily greetings and face-to-face conversations that we took for granted have been replaced by webcam meetings, little windows into each other's homes.
Está leyendo.
When we meet this way, we often talk about how COVID-19 and world events are affecting our team and our families. And one of the hardest parts is dealing with a feeling of helplessness. Initially, we struggled with maintaining a sense of purpose.
Chicos, voy a traducir cuando pare. No quiero cortarle,
from all of you.
¿O queréis que traduzca en tiempo real?
In a situation where it's easy to feel isolated, our purpose is to help bring
Básicamente
people
está
together.
comentando que hemos pasado tiempos muy
WoW
complicados todo el
is
mundo
truly a
y que también lo ha sido
unique
para
and
su
magical
equipo
place
y que eso ha dificultado
where
mucho el
people
trabajo
can
que han tenido que hacer
maintain the
durante ese
bonds of
tiempo.
friendship across physical distance by joining forces to take on epic challenges or just hang out and talk. In WoW, the journey together is the real reward. Getting an awesome loot upgrade, finally downing a mythic raid boss, defeating the enemy team in the last moments of the battle. All these experiences are memorable because we have each other to share them with. You've rekindled old friendships, made new ones, and gathered in Azeroth to honor fallen comrades. Seeing you all connect in this way has helped us carry on. WoW is also a place where you can just do your own thing, knowing that you share a common bond with millions of others who are exploring the world with you and who'll be there anytime you want to join up for an adventure or two. Like many of you, we're eager to embark on a new adventure together. You have our commitment. We will be releasing Shadowlands this fall, even if we end up shipping it from our homes. So again,
podéis tener seguridad de que Shadowlands se va a lanzar a finales de este año, aunque la tengamos que mandar desde nuestras propias casas.
While this stream is about Shadowlands, before I get to that, I want to remind everyone what's happening in WoW Classic. Later this month, on July 28th, WoW Classic will recreate one of the most talked about events in the game's history, the Encourage War. Players on every realm across the world will gather resources in a race to be the first to acquire the scepter of the shifting sands and open the gates of Encourage, signaling an epic war with the denizens of this ancient and deadly temple.
Y noviembre también, es otoño, ¿no?
I'm looking forward to welcoming all of our new Scarab Lords.
Está bien.
Now,
invierno es diciembre, claro. Pues como lo teníamos planeado. No me he equivocado en nada. Diciembre no, por ejemplo, pero es que todos sabíamos que no iba a ser diciembre.
Va a ser en noviembre, chicos. Os lo he dicho yo hace 8 meses. Before, except we have these full color Covenant emblems on the side. So it'll look great on the shelf with the other collector's editions. One of the really cool things about this box.
Yo esto lo tengo. A mí esto me va a llegar a casa.
It's literally exploding with color. This recreates the moment when Sylvanas broke the sky above Icecrown Citadel. And you can see the cool reflective material. Inside,
es el brillo que hubo encima de Icecrown cuando se rompió el cielo con Sylvanas.
An Anima Wyrmling pet, a bunch of digital goodies, and 30 days of game time. You'll also find, and this is something we know you've all asked for, so we did one just for Shadowlands, but here's the art book. Beautiful 4-color art on every page. I'm sorry, full color art on every page, but it has all the concept art and a lot of great imagery that are unique to Shadowlands. And so you can also celebrate Shadowlands at your desk or home office. We have Shadowlands mousepad.
Vale, han sacado un mousepad. Bueno, básicamente está haciendo promoción de lo que viene dentro del pack épico de Shadowlands. Yo es el que compré, vale 70 pavos, porque yo lo desgrabo. Yo le digo a Hacienda, oye tal, esto
this contains a pin for each of the covenants, Kyrian, Venthyr, Necrolords, and Night Fae. It also includes a soundtrack for Shadowlands, so you can listen to the music of the afterlife wherever you go. You'll be experiencing more of Shadowlands very soon. In fact, I'm pleased to announce World of Warcraft Shadowlands will officially enter beta next week. Beta participants will be able to experience the max level challenges
La semana que
in
viene.
Law, the most dangerous place in all the Shadowlands, and one of the most rewarding too. To tell you more about our upcoming beta, I'd like to introduce our game director,
¡Hostias!
Ian Hazzakostas.
Vale, viene
On behalf of
Ion.
the WoW team, thank you again.
Vale, la beta
for
la
your
semana
support.
que viene, chicos. La beta. Me cago en mi puta madre. Yo me voy de
Hi,
vacaciones.
everybody. Thank you, John. Thank you for
Es que siempre
sharing
me
your
hacen lo
morning
mismo, tío.
or evening with us,
Siempre me
as the
hacen lo
case may be.
mismo. Pues
Super hyped to be able to share that collector's edition with everybody.
Siempre- no me voy a quedar
One of
sin
my
vacaciones
favorite
otro
features
año,
that
¿eh?
John didn't get a chance to
Me da por
mention
culo.
is that
Es
those
lo que ha
pins
hecho. Además, si
actually
no me la van a
have a
dar, ¿qué más da?
self-destruct mechanism built in. So pick one carefully. If you want, the other three might vanish instantly. Let's talk a little bit about what is coming up in
Vale, va a
the
comentar un
beta
poco lo
ahead
que va a venir.
and Shadowlands in general.
Vale.
So.
¿Qué comento?
First, I want to look back at the 3 months since we launched our alpha. Just about 3 months ago to this day, the alpha began, and we welcomed thousands of folks from around the world in to begin to share this great project that we've been working on really for the last couple of years. We've at this point
Comentando que
journeyed through the 4 main
llevan 3
zones
meses
of the
con la alfa y que les ha
Shadowlands,
servido para
seen a glimpse of the Maw, experienced Covenant active
mejorar mucho el
abilities,
juego, para
and of course,
ver cómo
seen
funcionaba
Torghast.
todo, arreglar bugs.
Our Valiant Alpha testers have completed over 800,000 quests in that time.
Han
Over
completado
2,000
los
unique
800.000 quests,
characters
¿verdad?
have finished Exile's Reach, our new player experience on the Alliance side, and ventured off to join the Alliance and go to Kultiris. Over 62,000 Torghast runs have been undertaken on our alpha servers. And alas, just over 11,000 of those ended in the clutches of the Terra group. So be more careful next time.
Vale, esto no hay nada que traducir.
And crucially, over 64,000 in-game bug reports using our in-game reporting tool have been
64,000
entered by
bugs
alpha testers. Our
reportados.
QA team internally is busy poring over those.
La
So
madre que me
far, I
parió,
think they've
tú.
cataloged something like 1,600 unique bugs that are being tracked in our system as a result of
Estoy
those
como fumándome
reports,
un pequeño porro.
which will be fixed, of course, by the time Shadowlands comes out.
Esperemos que estén
And we know
fixes.
that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Si no,
This is
estáis
really
así
an
asado.
invaluable tool, and every bit of your feedback matters. Speaking of feedback, it's not just the feedback within the tool, but also broader discussions on the forums and the community at large, on places like Reddit and Twitter, and the videos folks are making
Bueno, está diciendo
to
cosas
share
muy sencillas, chicos.
reactions,
Está comentando que, bueno,
thoughts, and ways
han
in which
experimentado un montón de
the
errores, los han
experience
ido
that they're seeing
solucionando, que han
could be
tenido un montón de
improved.
feedback en las diferentes
Something
redes
that our
sociales,
entire
en
development
Reddit,
team
en todas
is
partes, y que lo han
eagerly
intentado
attentive to.
solucionar
Now,
para tener
our
todo
alpha
bien.
experience
Pero es
and
una
our
alfa,
alpha
es normal.
process really is a true alpha. For the past weeks, what you have been seeing is the active organic evolution of the game. Sometimes a build might have a change that literally is 5 days old. It's an experiment. It's a solution to some problem that was discovered, and we want to see what reactions are immediately. There's a very quick turnaround time there, and it's a collaborative process between us and the community. And so, we've seen some changes to, for example, the pacing of
No quiero
Torghast
cortarle.
and the removal of any sort of the torment system or time limits there. An area in Torghast we've heard a lot about also is, frankly, just how much
Está
fun people
básicamente
are
hablando
having
del
and
feedback y de
the grim
cómo han ido
prospect
recogiendo
of
información
only
para
being
solucionar
able to do
problemas,
it a
básicamente.
certain number of times a week.
Está
I think
poniendo
we
ejemplos.
previously discussed that the Endless Corridors section of Torghast would be completely ungated, but I'm actually happy to announce that at this point we are shifting
mejor.
to completely remove all keying from all the wings of Torghast.
Así mejor,
And so you
¿vale?
can run it to your heart's content. If you want to go in, have fun with a buddy, try out a new build, just experience the dynamic gameplay of Torghast, we don't want to get in your way. We'll figure out a solution to the reward system there to make sure that you're not required or overly encouraged to endlessly grind it all week. But if you want to do it just because it's fun, we don't want to stop you.
De momento está
Of course,
comentando
our class
cosas
team
muy...
is listening, and our
El
combat
meollo
team
viene
are listening
después,
to the
chicos.
feedback
Calma,
there,
calma.
and there
Aquí
are
vamos a
regular
tener para una
updates
horita.
coming out and many more to follow. Our level design team, which sculpts the hills and the mountains and the roads that shape our zones, are actually eagerly devouring every bit of footage of people playing the alpha they can get their hands on, often watching people who get turned around or confused or stuck trying to climb up a hill that looks like it should be
Está hablando
climbable,
del
and they're
terreno,
instantly
de
going in,
zonas en
fixing
las que
those
cuesta
areas for
poder
the next
moverse,
build
etc.
the next week. Every part of the game, our character artists who are looking at reactions to character customizations that are going out and hearing what
Y
people are most
comentando que
excited
están
about,
intentando
what they
mejorar
wish they
mucho
could
en
have, what
la
options are missing,
customización de los
and doing what they can
personajes,
to
en
have
la
that.
customización de los
So I
terrenos, el
can't thank
artista,
all of you enough, both the people
el
who
artist,
are
el
in
concepto
the alpha
artista,
who have been
digamos, del
testing
juego.
there for us, but also those who are sharing their thoughts as part of the broader community conversation. The work that goes into Shadowlands is, as much yours as it is ours, truly.
Bueno,
So now,
dice que el
turning the
trabajo
corner,
de
looking
Shadowlands
ahead
realmente es
to
más
what the
trabajo
next
nuestro que
weeks will
trabajo
hold
suyo, ¿no?
as we move
En
into
cuanto,
our beta.
en cuanto a
So what does beta mean?
el concepto del juego.
For us, beta certainly means the game's not done, but the framework is there and is complete. There shouldn't be missing pieces, giant missing ones where there's an entire feature that's not there, or there's a zone that's not yet playable. While those things are true, we continue to call it alpha. But we're getting very close to, pretty much the framework all being intact, being present. And so the level cap is going to go up to 60 when beta begins. It's also going to mean a first look at our endgame systems, at truly joining a Covenant, at visiting your Covenant sanctum, playing through that content, playing through our outdoor world max level content, our max level dungeons, our raids, experiencing soulbinds, and more.
Está comentando que en la beta ya se va a poder echar un vistazo a todo el endgame, ya va a ser nivel 60, ya vas a poder explorar la mayor parte, vas a poder explorar todas las zonas.
Now, perhaps most importantly for many of you, this also means a big new invite wave going out.
Big New Invite Wave, o sea que a lo mejor me toca a mí de suerte. Si sale el miércoles que viene, hacemos un stream larguísimo, testeándolo todo. Y testeamos un montón de clases. Antes de que me vaya de vacaciones, ¿vale? Si puedo, si no, pues
make sure to go to our Battle.net account options, check your settings there, make sure that you're opted in to Warcraft Beta, if that interests you, and be patient, don't get frustrated if you don't get an email from us right away. We will continue to do invites over the course of the summer.
Bien.
And as John said, of course, this kicks off next week.
La semana que viene.
So I want to take the rest of our time together just to talk a bit about some of the things that you're going to be seeing as part of that endgame loop. Some of this is stuff that we haven't really had a chance to say much about since
Vale, va a comentar un poquito acerca
del
loot y acerca
and how the designs have evolved
y acerca del diseño del propio.
So first off,
primero los Covenants.
As we have said at great length, Covenants are the centerpiece of Shadowlands, the Shadowlands expansion. This is where all roads lead. As you journey through the zones of the Shadowlands, you will play through all 4 zones. You will meet the 4 controlling powers of the Shadowlands. You get a chance to borrow their powers, get a sense of their personalities.
Básicamente ya sabéis que las Covenants son como equipos con los que coges unas características, coges alguna habilidad o alguna pasiva, como tu equipo es, básicamente. Y esto es en lo que se va a basar Shadowlands.
And choose whether you want to cast your lot with the Kyrian of Bastion, the Venthyr of Revendreth, the Necrolords of Maldraxxus, or the Night Fae of Ardenweald. And as you make that choice, what that means is unlocking an entire sphere of gameplay and content for you. What we've seen so far in Alpha really is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just these couple of active abilities.
Está comentando que en la alfa solo se ha visto un poquito, pero que realmente esta decisión lleva a un montón de contenido, un montón de decisiones más y un montón de cosas, ¿no? Lo cual lo vamos a comentar luego, pero esto puede traer problemas.
So on the system side, first off, one of the most prominent immediate things you're going to experience is soulbinds. So soulbinding is this ancient ritual in the Shadowlands whereby 2 souls can link themselves to each other, sharing a portion of their identity, of their memories, and also of their powers. And so as you join a Covenant, you'll be able to form soulbinds with certain key powerful souls that are affiliated with that Covenant.
Básicamente, cuando tú escoges una Covenant, escoges un equipo, y este equipo tiene una serie de pasivas y de talentos que son estos, que se llaman soulbinds.
So here, I'm going to use the Venthyr and Revendreth for a lot of these upcoming examples because that's the first Covenant that we're going to have playable in an upcoming build. Nadia, the Mistblade, she was a renowned duelist in life, and that persona really shapes all of her abilities and the ways in which she's going to enhance your combat ability, grant you utility, and more. And so what each soul
está comentando que la sabra de daño,
las
sabras defensivas, lo de siempre, la utilidad.
That you will traverse down as you gain power in your Covenant. You can pick which path you want to go down, customize your gameplay, customize those abilities to suit your gameplay. Now you may be noticing the empty slots in this tree. That's where you're going to put these items that are called conduits. Now, for those who played Legion, you may remember relics that you put into your artifact weapon. These are fairly similar. Conduits are going to be items that you can
Estos talentos son muy parecidos a las armas de Legion. La rama de talentos del arma de Legion, pues esto es parecido,
item sources.
Lo cual está bien.
Unlike the Soulbind traits, which are universal.
Yo al arma de Legion le tengo aprecio. A mí me molaba
have
ir
the
subiendo y
same
tal.
traits if you have Naji as your Soulbind. Conduits are spec specific. They will do things like improve your ignore pain or your rejuvenation or whatever you choose to slot it. There are different conduit types. Some are going to focus on increasing your throughput, like your damage and healing. Others are more about survival. Others are about utility. Again, this is letting you mix and match to choose the gameplay and the loadout that really best suits whatever you're looking to do on a given evening in World of Warcraft. Now, unlike Covenants, which themselves are a very weighty choice and not something that's lightly switched, Soulbinds have a great deal of flexibility, both in terms of respecking them at a nominal cost.
Esto puede estar bien dependiendo de cuánta variedad te puedan dar.
Or just switching from one Soulbind to
el
another.
problema es que siempre suele haber una rama que es mucho más fuerte que las demás. El problema es equilibrar eso. ¿Entendéis? No sé si sabéis lo que quiero decir. Es decir, de nada vale que tener 5 opciones si hay una que es mucho mejor que las demás, ¿sabes? Eso es de lo que se tienen que cargar.
A key way in which you're going to progress within your Covenant is by gaining renown. Renown will deepen your connection with your Soulbinds. It will also unlock a wide range of features, rewards, followers, which we'll talk about in a little bit, cosmetics, and more. You'll earn renown by, on a weekly basis, going out into the world, gathering anima, this precious lifeblood of the Shadowlands that every Covenant is starving for, or by going into the Maw and rescuing tormented souls that really rightfully belonged in your Covenant, in your realm, but that were instead cast into the Maw because of how the Machine of Death is broken. This isn't an open-ended grind. This isn't like artifact power. This is a more, metered progression as you're working on behalf of your Covenant.
Vale, esto es
and we're making sure that really from the start, the moment Shadowlands launches, we have robust catch-up systems built in, whether you are someone who's switched Covenants or someone who's just
para luego ir al Maw, que es la zona esta de la tormenta,
you don't want you to feel like you're behind or like you have some catch-up calendar. But Renown is a primary way in which you will progress through the systems of the Covenant, including Soulbinds, but also some stuff.
Es un poco como el farmeo. Ese era el farmeo, como el artefacto, pero no es el artefacto, es el sistema de farmeo, que es como un sistema de poder que te sirve para... A ver, es normal que haya farmeo, chicos, es normal que haya farmeo. El WoW sin farmeo no sería WoW. Lo importante es que el farmeo sea divertido, coño.
You're actually likely to begin and end most of your gameplay sessions once you're at max level. Each Sanctum has a number of features to it that you can upgrade, but really restore to functionality. Because I think what we're going to learn as we venture through the Shadowlands is that this was a vibrant place that had its own ecosystem and politics and people with various pastimes, but all this has been thrown into disarray as a drought plagues the land, everything is withering, starved of anima, and chaos really is consuming the Shadowlands. And you as a champion of your Covenant will be working to restore that order, to restore things to how they once were. And that will be largely accomplished by getting anima, rescuing souls from the Maw, and restoring, activating these structures. One of them that every Covenant has is a transportation network. So within your own zone, if you're a member of the Night Fae, there's a complex route network that lets you quickly access different parts of the zone. The Venthyr and Revendreth have a network of blood mirrors that can basically teleport you around. We want to make it so that, particularly if this is something you're investing in, you feel most at home, most comfortable in your zone.
Este es el sistema de farmeo paralelo que va a haber con el otro que acabamos de ver. Vale, este es el sistema de farmeo de un santuario que vamos a tener, ¿no? Que va a ser parecido al anterior, ¿vale? Van a ser como dos farmeos que vamos a tener que hacer para nuestro Covenant, que es nuestro grupo, nuestra secta, es que no sé cómo llamarla en castellano. No sé cómo se llama en castellano.
Groves in Ardenweald that were once flourishing with magical energy are now desiccated, withered. Temples in Bastion lie dormant, deactivated. The constructs that once guarded them are inactive. And anima is the answer to all of those things. And so what you're doing as you bring it back to your Covenant and to your Sanctum is pooling it in a reservoir, but you also have the ability to direct the flow of anima outward toward your zone to regrow, reactivate these dormant parts of the space. Now, what that means in gameplay terms is you can send a stream of anima over to an area which will enable quests, treasures, events, outdoor world content.
Básicamente esto es conquista de territorios. Va a haber un mapa de conquista de territorios que va a ser también para tu Covenant, en la que vas a poder hacer misiones, supongo que PvP, etc. Y conseguir cosas
enabling and reactivating these spaces, both so that you have the content available for you, but also so that you see the world change around you to an extent. This grove that once was withered and dead in Ardenweald will once again be blooming and flourishing with energy thanks to your efforts. And the events that were there will now always be up for you as a result of what you've done. The third system that every Covenant has is a scouting map. This is an extension of the mission system that we first introduced back in Warlords of Draenor, and we've kind of tinkered with that formula a couple times since then. And I think the basic loop there, we've moved away from its central
importance. Esta es la tercera cosa que va a tener las Covenants, que es un sistema de seguidores.
You know, the Warlords era version of this being a source or the best raid gear in the game, or what have you. But it's an outlet for some storytelling, some offline progression. So you have something waiting for you where you log in, and something that you can maybe check in on in shorter sessions. But we want to add more depth to the system than what we had.
Porque es aburridísimo. El sistema actual de seguidores es una mierda, pero como la copa de un pelo. Malísimo. Espero que lo cambien, así tiene mucha mejor pinta. Es que eso necesitaba un cambio. Eso necesitaba un cambio porque era aburridísimo.
We want to re-envision the foundations of that system to be something that is a better analog to the fantasy that we're trying to convey. The way a mission works in Warcraft isn't a coin flip. The way combat works in Warcraft, when you're sending these champions out into a dangerous area, isn't success or failure, it's nuanced gameplay with tanks and healers and melee DPS and range DPS as a party of combatants fight a bunch of enemies. And so this is an abstracted form of that type of combat. It still will happen while you're offline, but there's a turn-based system here where you will level up your soulbinds, recruit additional champions and adventurers to bolster their ranks, and send troops custom based on your Covenant out to complete these missions.
Que esto sea como una dungeon, no digamos, no una dungeon, pero que sean como misiones en las que haya un ranged, un melee, un tanque, un healer, y que sea pues como un equipo con el que vas atacando y defendiendo y que se va upgradeando y que va mejorando. No es una mala idea. No es una mala idea, tíos. No es una mala idea. Puede ser un buen cambio para hacer que esto sea divertido, porque ahora mismo no lo es. Efectivamente, esto es la clave. ¿Os acordáis? Es que me gustaría silenciarlo, pero no quiero. Pero ¿os acordáis de cuando salió Legion? Que todos teníamos la aplicación del móvil para hacer misiones y tal, porque era algo nuevo. Pues algo parecido, pero con un sistema más avanzado, ¿no? Que esté mejor. Es una buena idea, no es mala. No es mala idea. Depende, a lo mejor luego es mala, pero debería estar para móvil. O sea, eso es la clave. Eso lo había en Legion.
If you are a Venthyr in Revendreth, you also have this fourth section of your sanctum known as the Ember Court. Now, what the Ember Court is, it's basically it's a hosting venue for pretty rad parties.
Vale, estos son los santuarios de las Covenant, ¿vale?
Of Revendreth, certainly
lo de la sangre esa que veis
in the events leading up to this expansion, was one of elegance, aristocracy, a lot of those tropes surrounding nobility. And part of what that means is showing off your influence by hosting grand galas for the most important individuals, not just from Revendreth, but from across the Shadowlands as a whole. And the Venthyr were notorious for this. Now, your ally, as you join the Venthyr, Prince Renethal, is looking to reestablish himself, to reestablish a new order, and showing off his growing influence and stature in that area. And you're going to help him out as a loyal member.
Está contando roleplay.
The way that's going to play out is what's effectively, a self-contained minigame where you can go out, seek out guests, invite them to the party. Not maybe literally arrange catering, but figure out the different services that are going to make those guests happy. Play through the party in real time, maybe fending off party crashers that are
Vale, básicamente te está comentando que en los santuarios va a haber como minijuegos con los que vas a poder interactuar con otros amigos, con otros colegas y poder hacer misiones que desbloqueen contenido, que desbloqueen objetos, etc. Como unos minijuegos o algo así.
And to be clear, this is not gloom and doom, life or death, saving the Shadowlands stuff.
Es que yo no estoy muy interesado en que haya demasiados minijuegos dentro del
has a
juego.
remarkable amount of depth to it.
¿Entendéis? O sea,
but is there to, allow us
con
to
que haya uno o dos
flesh
ya
out
me
the
llega.
culture and
A
the
mí yo lo que quiero es que haya
personality
cosas en
and
el
the identities
mundo.
of these covenants, of these areas. You're not going to defeat the jailer by throwing the most badass party in the Shadowlands, but that is part of what being a Venthyr is. Now, if on the other hand, you join the Kyrian in Bastion, their unique feature is called the Path of Ascension. Now, the Path of Ascension is driven by this unique soul mirror, whereby you can actually inhabit the consciousness of one of your soulbinds. So you can play, let's say, as the aspirant Pelagos, with a unique set of abilities, and go through a series of trials, gladiatorial combat against the most powerful souls of the Shadowlands that you will also go out in your adventures across the world and recruit and capture and bring back to fight within the Path of Ascension. This is a self-contained, combat-heavy system that has, a little bit of a boss rush feel to it. For those of you who are very old school, if you remember the Shartul event way back in Burning Crusade in Blades Edge Mountains, this is loosely inspired by that. It's the same kind
Está bien que lo
of
comente
vibe,
porque hay gente a la que le
and
gusta.
this is available
A
to
mí me da un
members
poco más
of the
igual.
Kyrian.
Respeto.
Now, if you joined the Necrolords of Maldraxxus,
Básicamente son muy parecidos. Habrá que ver las habilidades. Lo que hay que ver es los talentos. Eso es lo que hay que ver para escoger la Covenant. Hay que saber los talentos. Se sabe ya la fecha, noviembre del año que viene.
Those creatures, the art of necromancy,
y la beta en una
is
semana.
most closely affiliated with Maldraxxus. And so the structure you have as a member of the Necrolords is called the Abomination Factory. And this is a system whereby you can, build, fleshwork creatures essentially, whether it's an abomination or a ghoul or a geist, to be the perfect housing for a soul that's in need of a physical form. Now, these souls have quirks and unique personalities and interests and abilities. So as you meet them, figure out what the right form for them is, and create a body for them to house, you can then adventure with them, unlocking various perks ranging from utility, extra gathering bonuses,
básicamente
to some
con los santuarios de las Covenants.
And again, as always,
lo que os he dicho
this
antes,
is
se van a poder hacer minijuegos, se van a poder hacer eventos, cosillas.
If you're a member of the Night Fae of Ardenweald, Ardenweald contains in its innermost
Supongo que todo este contenido será instanciado.
Known as the Queen's Conservatory. This is where powerful souls effectively germinate, rest,
y espero que no sea como la Ciudadela. Porque si es como la Ciudadela,
and are prepared for rebirth and return to the world of the living, because that is the essential function, one of the essential properties of Ardenweald. Now, the form that takes for you as a player,
dale vida.
This is effectively a soul garden, and it is inspired and has some parallels to the farm back in Mists of Pandaria, where you are tending your own plots, you are expanding them, upgrading them, being able to, effectively fertilize them with different catalysts that are going to shape the consciousness of these souls as you nurture them back to life. So it's a bit more magical, but at the end of the day, its own branch of self-contained gameplay. And really, one of the core ideas behind this variety of features is to, reinforce the breadth of what Covenant choice is all about, and to make your experience slightly different from that of your peers as you journey through the Shadowlands.
Está comentando que lo de los santuarios es básicamente para reforzar un poco la historia de cada una de las Covenants, para reforzar el porqué de estar en ella, la historia de la propia, y justificar el que formes parte de su equipo, ¿no? Vamos a entender un poco de qué va la Covenant. Está bien, pero es roleplay, es lore. Vale.
Now, some other new content. We are going to have, coming up, our last dungeon that we have not yet revealed, a max level dungeon called the Theater of Pain.
Theater of Pain.
Theater of Pain is a dungeon in the center of Maldraxxus. And this is, really, it's an epic arena, and the dungeon takes place during an important event. There's this regularly recurring battle royale, effectively, where all of the warhouses of Maldraxxus send their greatest champions to fight it out, and to prove who is the strongest, who is the most powerful of all.
¡Qué guapo!
Because that's what Maldraxxus is about. It's might makes right is the prevailing ethos there.
Mola.
Demonstrations of
mola. A mí ese sistema me mola.
Now this has, there are particularly complex layers to what's going on right now, given the strife that's gripping the Shadowlands, that make these particular games perhaps the most important and the weightiest in recent memory. And you find yourself as an adventurer, as a party of adventurers, plunged into this conflict. And the way that's going to play out is as a very non-linear dungeon experience as you choose which of the different factions you're going to.
Será como la mira de la expedición insular. No, no creo, porque esto es una dungeon.
The catacombs and the tunnels.
Quiero pensar que no. Será instanciado,
culminating in a final
será como
encounter
TOC.
where we'll see if you or the 5 of you can emerge victorious as the ultimate champions of the Theater of Pain. And as with all, things Maldraxxus, the prevailing decor here is
una arena cerrada,
so expect more
en la que salen
as
bosses,
you enter this dungeon.
Como BRD.
Next up, we are going to be revisiting the outdoor space of the Maw. So this is really where it all began for us in the Shadowlands. We just saw a couple of weeks ago in Alpha that initial venture into the Maw, the domain of the Jailer, as we went in from Icecrown Citadel, not knowing what was going to await us.
Aquí es donde estaré yo, que es donde estamos los desterrados, chicos.
Was a horrific array of forces that we can't hope to overcome. We just barely escaped from the Jailer's clutches and made it out into Oribos, where we could then explore the rest of the Shadowlands. Well, now, as we hit level 60, as we are max level, with the power of a Covenant behind us, it's going to be time for us to return to this place where it all began, to go into the Maw, with the goal of investigating, exploring, trying to understand more of what the Jailer is up to, and how we might thwart those plans. So fortunately, early on in our visits into the Maw, we're going to encounter probably the one singular being in all of the Maw who doesn't actively want to kill us, at least as far as we can tell. This mysterious broker known as Venari. Venari is
Esto es lo que vimos en el vídeo de Wakala, ¿os acordáis?
Small cave in the
el vídeo de Wakala.
Maw, and you'll be able to work with her to investigate and explore,
vamos a trabajar con un NPC en el Maw, con el que vamos a tener que hacer misiones, con el que vamos a hacer cosas, pero el Maw es un sitio, digamos, es un sitio distinto al mundo en el que vamos a vivir. El Maw es un sitio en el que puedes estar durante un tiempo solo, es una cosa rara el Maw.
Most recently, probably Mechagon from the Rise of Ashara patch that we had in the middle of Battle for Azeroth. But, those roots go all the way back to places like Timeless
Un Naciatar, no,
this isn't the place where you're going to bring up your map and see a bunch of world quests and clear direction.
Mecandria, no.
It's more about a loose structure, general broad objectives, and then lots and lots of discoverable gameplay. So we can't wait to have people jump in here, let us know what you think. And one of the really fun challenges
es que no da mucha información acerca del Maw. Va a ser como las visiones, puede ser, Milosa. Puede ser, eso sí se acerca más.
This is not a place full of flight paths and inns to set your Hearthstone and people who are welcoming you at every turn.
Exacto, el Maw no es para tener vuelos, ni para tener la piedra, ni nada. El Maw es para ir un rato a hacer ciertas misiones, a hacer ciertas cosas. No está mal, no es un mal concepto.
Under the watchful eye of the Jailer, where if you raise a bit too much of a ruckus, you are engaging in making a bit too much noise, fighting too many big champions, calling the attention of the Jailer upon you, you're going to need to beat a hasty retreat if you want to get out there and if you want to escape with your life and your hard-won earnings intact.
Habrá como un cancelero
del
que deberás esquivar o que deberás evitar. Y básicamente tendrás que ir allí a hacer ciertas misiones concretas que solo puedes hacer allí, como seguramente cosas de legendarios y cosas así importantes, y que serán muy complicadas y que no serán donde vivir. Qué guapos los diseños, by the way. ¿Sabes? Una zona apartada, como las misiones. Pero las misiones están instanciadas, esto se supone que no. O sea, yo supongo que el Maw no estará instanciado. ¡Guau, qué guapo, tú!
All right, so yeah, it's like a super desolate place, but awe-inspiring in a terrible way. So those are some of the specifics that we've just covered. I also want to lay out a bit more of what lies ahead as beta unfolds across the summer.
Vale, va a hablarnos un poquito más de la beta.
Later this month, we'll be kicking off formal raid testing of our Castle Nathria raid. This is a 10-boss raid in the zone of Revendreth.
La primera
raid. We're ultimately going to face off against the Venthyr Lord Denathrius.
Vamos a pegar con Denathrius.
Players in the Shadowlands. It's just incredible gothic fantasy. Our encounter team and our dungeon art team had a blast making this. We can't wait to get people in there. As always, we'll have focused testing windows for normal, heroic, mythic, and raid finder difficulties. And as we get on in the beta, we'll be looking to specifically have some targeted invites for experienced raiders who can give us the feedback that we need to get the tuning right on difficulties like Mythic. Also later this month, we'll be kicking off Shadowlands Mythic Keystone Dungeons. We want to get these in your hands as quickly as possible. As soon as max level content is unlocked, we want to enable Mythic Keystones. We'll probably have a vendor that just sells.
He comentado que primero van a sacar la raid y que la van a sacar en los modelos normales, en normal, mítica tal. Y que luego más adelante sacarán las míticas plus y tal para que los jugadores puedan testear los límites de la mítica plus y ver que todo funciona correctamente.
Bolstering or necrotic or bursting are extra frustrating, and make sure that we're making any tweaks early on to make the experience that you have ultimately when Shadowlands comes out the best one possible. Later on in beta, we'll also be revealing for focus testing our first Shadowlands seasonal affix, as well as some potential other tweaks to the system. Legendary rune crafting is something we're really excited to let people get their hands on. This is something we talked about way back at BlizzCon, and this is the expression of legendary items in Shadowlands. So for those of you who remember Legion, and really throughout the history of World of Warcraft, some of the coolest loot we've ever made has had that orange color, orange border. When you see a legendary item, it's usually something that's going to transform your gameplay and unlock an all new level of power within you. And one of the big points of feedback that we got that was frustrating in Legion was centered around how these items were obtained and the lack of control over obtaining them. There might be an item that was tremendously powerful, you'd seen videos featuring it, you were really excited to get it, but there was nothing you could do to earn it.
Está diciendo que uno de los problemas que había en Legion es que los diseños de los objetos te molaban mucho, pero que era muy difícil conseguir los objetos que querías, porque era a través de RNG. Entonces han decidido cambiarlo para esta expansión y hacerlo un poquito más personalizado en vez de punto RNG. Muy buena decisión.
This mysterious runesmith who's chained up, shackled in a Hannibal Lecter-style cell in the bowels of Torghast. And what you'll learn pretty early on is that this runesmith wields some of the same power, that power of domination that was once used to craft incredible artifacts like Frostmourne or the now shattered helm of the Lich King. And by recovering essence from Torghast, as well as scraps of this ancient runic knowledge that you can bring back to the smith and awaken locked away memories, the runesmith will be able to make for you, to imbue an item with power that you get from a tailor, blacksmith, leatherworker, depending on your armor type. The runesmith can make a legendary of your choice for you. That way you can look at those amazing.
O sea, vas a poder coger un objeto, no sé si lo estoy entendiendo bien. Vas a poder coger el objeto de un sastre o de un leatherworker o de quien sea y lo vas a poder upgradear a través de runecrafting para convertirlo en un objeto legendario de tu elección. ¿Es eso lo que estoy entendiendo?
To old set bonuses, to powers that are brand new Torghast powers that you'll be able to, use temporarily within Torghast, but sometimes permanently imbue a legendary
y esto lo podrás mejorar en el Torghast, que es la torre, que es como la torre del... ¿Se acordáis? La que vimos el otro día. La torre como la de los Stark. No, es una torre que van saliendo enemigos y vas subiendo de niveles. Y ahí vas consiguiendo mejorar tus legendarios. No es un mal sistema, ¿no?
Covenant campaigns. So I didn't touch on this when we were talking about covenants earlier, but each covenant, once you join them, has a max level narrative quest arc associated with it. This is similar to the war campaign that we had in Battle for Azeroth, where there was an alliance campaign and a horde
campaign. Que las Covenant...
This time around, there are 4 distinct campaigns.
Espero que una vez hagas una Covenant, no tengas que hacer el roleplay con todos tus personajes. Por favor. Por favor, tío. La primera vez que hagas una Covenant, vale, pero luego, tío, no volver a hacer. Porque está comentando que las Covenant, cuando te haces una Covenant, hay un roleplay largo, una campaña larga, ¿sabes?
Also, before too long in beta, we want to kick off some focused PvP testing. We want to set up an environment where we can unlock all of these systems.
Solo con el main, ojalá,
the progression and the rate at which you earn them here, but we want to just let you have access to soulbinds, conduits, legendaries, all the rest, and get early and rapid iteration on arena, battlegrounds, just general PvP combat testing at max level, so that we can make sure that we're both reining in any outliers, but also just dialing in the overall pacing of combat. No one likes those matches that go into super high dampening. The other end of the spectrum, no one wants matches that are over in 20 seconds in some crazy burst or proc window. So the earlier we can get that in front of you, the sooner we can start really dialing it into what it needs to be. As part of that also, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, we do want to test
Básicamente ha comentado que a nadie le gustan los combates que duran 10 minutos por culpa del dumpe, hasta que haya dumping, y nadie le gustan los combates que duran 20 segundos porque hay un objeto que no tiene sentido. Así que van a esperar a testear bien todo con los personajes que vayan a jugar dentro de la beta, etcétera, para intentar hacer un buen balance de tuerca. O sea, básicamente, ha dicho.
Level up through Shadowlands, replace your gear organically, earn the rewards you're going to earn, and start giving us feedback on how all of that feels. So I think one of the things we've learned over the years in making these expansions is there's a whole lot that goes into them. There's a ton of moving parts, there's a ton of systems, and we can make our best guesses as to how players are going to interact with them, but there's no real substitute for having the whole thing stood up end to end, having people go through it. And rather than having those regrets that we sometimes have a month or two into an expansion where we realize that we missed the mark on some aspect of that progression, we want to really do as much of it as possible during beta so that when the game comes out for real, it's everything that it needs to be. And that's really the theme of the month ahead. We have some work to do to finish fleshing out the structures.
Bueno, no ha habido demasiada info, ¿eh? Y tiene pinta de que esto va a chapar ya. No ha habido demasiada info, la verdad.
Iteration. And finally,
me esperaba más vídeos, más.
I'm going to talk a little bit about tuning because I know it's a hot topic. Balance is always
no sé si acaba ya,
the most controversial, one of the most central.
Pero si acaba ya, ha sido un poquito fumarme un poquito.
Horgast is going to be tainted because someone's walking through one-shotting things, or if something is so weak that it doesn't matter if it's theoretically fun, it feels terrible to use, or no one wants to use it. We don't get feedback on it. We need to fix that. But beyond that, we really want to focus first on shoring up the conceptual foundations of what we're building. We want to make sure that the abilities, the systems, and everything else feel fun, that they sound exciting as ideas. And then once we've gotten to a place where we're confident in those foundations, the natural next step is to dial them in so that they're well tuned. And so if you're looking at the way things are in alpha now and saying to yourself that, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, the best choices are 40% better than what you might pick if you were just trying to, go after what looks fun, that's because there's a key part of the process here that just hasn't happened yet. Now, I don't want to say, just wait until after beta, it's only beta. We sometimes get that wrong too, but there's a deliberate process that we approach for a reason. So we want to make sure that we're using the majority of our bandwidth to fix bad ideas rather than potentially trying to polish something that ultimately is fundamentally flawed.
Esto está bien. Que están intentando centrarse más en cambiar malas ideas y malos desarrollos, cosas que están haciendo mal, que más que corregir algún error, sino no ejecutar malas ideas.
We're at this point going to go back to the drawing board and fundamentally redesign the way that ability works because it has some fundamental flaws that make it very challenging to balance, but also not even necessarily as fun as we'd hoped it would be. And so, having put a lot of effort into tuning that would have potentially masked an underlying problem, or at best just been a distraction from the more important work that we could have been doing in the meantime. And so as the original creative work of Shadowlands comes to a close, as we move out of that phase, the phase that lies ahead of us is going to have lots and lots of tuning and polish that will continue all the way up to the launch of the expansion later this year. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And I also want to thank you all for your patience. We'd originally planned on doing this stream a month ago, and back then we would have had somewhat different material, but we postponed it then to avoid distracting from a more important conversation. But of course, that conversation is still happening. Injustice doesn't cease just because we look away. Black Lives Mattered a month ago, Black Lives Matter today. And if that phrase is difficult to hear, know that I and others who speak those words aren't saying that your life has any less worth. We're only calling attention to the ways in which our societies seem to need a reminder that Black Lives Matter. Now, as John said earlier, these are extraordinarily difficult times. We all have our own struggles, and we can often help by simply listening with open hearts. So be kind to one another, stay safe, and we'll see you in Azeroth and in the Shadowlands beyond. Thank you.
Bueno, me quedo como fumándome un pitillo, ¿no? Muy bonitas las últimas palabras, pero no sé. Me quedo así un poquillo doblado, la verdad. Me quedo así como un poquito dobladito.